Hello and welcome to the live stream. Today we are doing just a general Q&A. So if you've got any questions about anything tech or studio related or anything else that you think I might be able to help with, I'm not really good for relationship or financial advice right at this moment. So but anything else or legal advice is off the table. But anything tech related, I'm all ears. So feel free to drop those questions into the chat. Same going for the Zoom. If you've got any questions, just pop them in as well. I'll just say a quick hello in the chat. Hey Jules, great to see you here. Wondering how you use Elgato Stream Deck app versus companion app. What's your workflow and what do you use them for? Which one do you prefer? I actually don't really use companion. So for those that don't know, the Stream Deck is a device which is what I'm basically running this live stream on. So I use Ecamm Live is my live production software. And then on the desk in front of me, whoops, that's a little bit dark. I've got this Stream Deck over here, and there are two further Stream Decks here. And these are basically used for switching scenes between my main camera and switching back to this one, switching to screen shares and things like that. And so I'm using the Stream Deck app for that. Now, Companion is an app that runs on the it's kind of like a separate piece of software really, but you can either have it where you use the Stream Deck purely as an input device for Companion, and Companion is the only thing that's running on the Stream Deck, or you can have it where you have certain buttons on the Stream Deck which are just controlling parts of Companion, or sorry, parts of the Stream Deck screen are basically controlling Companion. Now, why you might want to use Companion is because it has control over things like the 8M Mini, for example, which is a video switcher, a hardware video switcher. And so if you want to control that from the Stream Deck, then that is a common use case for Companion. There are other bits of software, other tools that Companion controls that you can't necessarily natively control with the Stream Deck itself, with any plugins that are built for it. And so that's why people might use that. I've tried Companion, but honestly, I just don't have a specific use case for it. So it's never been something that I've really built into my my workflow as such, because I can just do everything with the native Stream Deck app. So that's the thing. And certainly I do find, having used Companion before, I will definitely say that the regular Stream Deck app is certainly more user-friendly than Companion, in terms of setup. Not necessarily user-friendly, but a lot less complex. You know, the Stream Deck app is basically just drag and drop. If you want a particular action to be assigned to a button, it's just as simple as, basically just dragging it onto the interface. So if we come over to here, the Stream Deck app, let's say I wanted a button which was to run a particular scene in Ecamm. I'm literally just dragging it onto here and then select which scene I want, and then it's going to add that action to that particular button. So it's definitely a lot more user friendly, this sort of drag and drop. Whereas Companion, because of the fact that it is a more complex, it has more complex abilities, the actual app itself is therefore more complex as well. So that's the answer to that one. Hey, great to see you from Montreal, Canada. Great to see you. Do I use ProPresenter or MIDI or QLab for your presentation? I don't personally use ProPresenter. I use Ecamm Live as my live production software, and then when I want to have a slide content coming into it, then I'm using Keynote, or you could use PowerPoint, and so that is coming into the production. An example of that would be if I go over to a scene in Ecamm that I've got set up now. You may think that this is my camera coming in here, just the same as this scene. They look very similar. You'll notice a slight color change. But actually, this scene is basically bringing in Keynote. And now if I advance to the next slide in my Keynote presentation, this is something that I'm going to talk about in a moment, because somebody had a question about lighting, actually in the Zoom backstage, had a question about lighting. And so this is a little explainer. I've got all about that, so we can go through and talk about the exposure triangle and all the different aspects of it. But this is to answer your question, that this is Keynote, and Keynote has a function called live video. So it means that I can bring in my video into Keynote first, and then just share that into Ecamm. And that allows for specific specifically, the reason I do that is if you'll notice that my camera is in the center here, and then when I press this button to go to the next slide, my camera sort of animates across. And that little bit of an animation of my camera is done with Keynote, using Keynote's animation feature. So I always think of it as there's one piece of software, one tool that I'm using for the live production, which is camera switching, scene sharing, live streaming, and all of that. And then there's another tool that I'm using specifically for the presentation aspect. So live production being all the scenes and things like that that are going to be consistent across all of my productions, and the presentation side is going to be things that are specific to a presentation. Now, why you might want to use ProPresenter, and it's interesting you mentioned that one. First of all, we've got a ProPresenter expert in the academy, who that's sort of his thing, is using ProPresenter. And what it allows you to do for the uninitiated is it basically allows you to create presentations that, rather than just being a single slide deck or whatever, ProPresenter can incorporate things like lower thirds. You can have different displays. So, for example, if you've got two displays up on the stage, for example, on a live production, you might want to have certain content playing up on one screen and different content on another, but then you may want the presenter at the front to see, some speaker notes or presenter content at the front. You may want something different that's going out on a live stream. And ProPresenter is a really thorough production suite that allows you to control all of those different elements, but still have a sort of clean run of show. Now, the reason why I say it's interesting you mention it is I am considering that for my studio downstairs. So I'm in my what I call my desk studio. This is my regular kind of like working space. But then downstairs, what we have is this studio. The lights are all off, or at least the feature lights. And so what you're seeing here is a central camera. And if I can just manipulate that camera for a second, where's my my controls for it gone? Of course, they've always disappeared at the very moment that I actually need them. Let me try and get them back up a minute. It is over here. Oh, they just randomly moved to another side of the desk. So if I just move this camera around, what you'll see is this is a sort of stage that I've set up to basically replicate, an in-person stage to allow me to run events from here. And what you can see is over on the left there is a screen. And then we've got the right, there is another screen over here. And what I'm doing is I'm controlling all of the content by, at the moment, 5 pedals. I'm going to add in 2 more. I need 7. But the one that is sort of more or less in the center as you look at it, that pedal on the floor, that's basically controlling the content that is displayed on that vertical screen. And then if you go over to the, there's the one in the middle there, that's controlling the on-screen graphics, and that's just powered by Ecamm Live. The screen on the right is powered by another computer that's just putting up a presentation onto that side monitor there. And then we've got this screen over here, and normally this is cropped in, so you don't see the desk there in the shot. But down at the bottom, you'll see that there are 3 pedals, and that is controlling the content which goes up onto that screen. Now, the way that I'm sort of implementing this at the moment is basically there are 3 computers, one for the screen on the left, one for the screen on the right, and one that is for the production. And the screen on the right is also running Ecamm Live, which allows me to bring in, for example, like Zoom participants and put them up onto the screen and so on, and then control, slide content and whatever. Now, that is at the moment, as I say, 3 instances of Ecamm 3 computers with 2 instances of Ecamm Live and 3 instances of Keynote, and I'm controlling all of those things individually. Now, the potential drawback that I discovered when I did my first event from that space was that I had to keep in my head where I was in 3 separate slide decks, simultaneously, because I needed to advance, the on-screen graphics, the graphics on the left screen and the right screen, and so I was having to sort of think, advance the right ones in the right order, if you see what I mean. That would actually be solved by ProPresenter, because you could just then create the entire sort of run of show effectively across all of those displays, and then have it change those things as required, basically. So that's to answer your question in a long way. I use Ecamm Live with Keynote. I'm considering using ProPresenter. I've got to say, I've never heard of MITI or QLab though, so I will definitely check out those if those are something similar. So why 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 stream decks? Really, it comes down to the different functions of them, first of all. So as well as the 3 stream decks on the desk, I've got 2 pedals that are on the floor. The stream decks that I have on my desk are 2 XLs, which are 32 key, and then I've got the Stream Deck Plus as well. And the reason for the 32 keys, why I've got 2 of them, is it was basically at a point where in any given live production, I ran out of buttons on the single Stream Deck. So obviously you can have, well, I say obviously, it's possible with a Stream Deck to have, multiple pages of buttons. You can have different profiles, you can have folders and kind of scroll between them. But what I didn't want to be doing is in the middle of a live production, pressing a button thinking I was on one page, and then it would turn out I was on a different page, and then it would not do what I was expecting. So at the point where I was using all 32 buttons in a given live production circumstance, then that's when I added the second one in to then give me the buttons that I need. So right now, for example, I can show you my main Stream Deck profile. I just change in my app, and I'll be able to show you from here. So this is basically the profile that I'm in right now on my main Stream Deck. And these are essentially all the eCam controls. So these ones down here are controlling 4 different camera angles, front left, front right, back right, and so on. And the main camera here. These ones here are sharing my different screen shares. And you can see that I've basically got one big large screen, and I share different portions of the screen. So right now, for example, I'm sharing the top middle. And if I just switch over to this other camera angle, whoops, wrong one, here, I'm basically sharing this portion of the screen. So this is a 43-inch monitor, and then I can either share the top left, top middle, top right, or whatever. So in that instance, I was sharing this part of the screen, which is top middle, and so that's why it's sort of highlighted as this top middle here. This one shares my keynote presentation, and when we've got the buttons for forward and backwards in the keynote, and so all of these are basically related to scenes and overlays in eCam. I've then got another Stream Deck, which is basically for things that might change during that production as well. So, but this one is basically fixed all the time for whatever production I'm doing. This is what I can use to control that. And then the one on the right is sort of changing depending on what I'm actually doing. I do then you have the Stream Deck Plus, which is the one that has the dials on it. So it's got basically 8 buttons and 4 dials. And then that one I actually use as a profile switcher, really. So it allows me to switch between profiles on my other 2 Stream Decks. That's what I use the buttons for. So there is an action on Stream Deck, which is switch profile. And some people don't realize that what you can actually use this for is if we go to switch profile, you can not just change the profile on your the actual Stream Deck that you're looking at, but you can also change it on any of the other Stream Decks that you've got attached. So if I wanted to change the thing on my this one, Stream Deck Mobile, for example, I could just choose one of the profiles on that particular device. And then if you've got multiple Stream Decks, you can just create a multi-action and basically change profile on multiple Stream Decks with one button. So that's kind of what I'm using the Stream Deck Plus for. And then the dials are for things like zooming in, zooming out. I use it when I do my sort of live demo mode in eCam, and I want to sort of zoom into the content. I've got a button that I press, and then I can turn the dial to sort of zoom in and out. So this is what's on one of my screens right now. So that's kind of what I use the Stream Deck Plus for. And then the pedals are useful for things that you want hands-free. I actually, as well as having advanced slide on my main Stream Deck, sometimes I'll do that by the pedals, starting and stopping and recording. Sometimes if I want to have my hands-free, or if I'm on a Zoom call and want to control things, then I'll use the pedals for that. So to answer your question, how do you decide, or how did I come to that number? Is basically, the Stream Deck Plus and the Stream Deck XL are kind of slightly different devices. So that's got the dials and the push buttons. The pedal is really useful for sort of hands-free control. And then I just added in the extra pedal for more of that, and the extra XL when I needed to do, needed more actions in a given live stream. In terms of the, where you should start if somebody's just thinking about getting a Stream Deck, I would still recommend the 32-key XL, just because although technically having the dials gives you that extra level of functionality, I just don't think that 8 keys is really enough to have at your fingertips, because whatever you think you're going to want to use the Stream Deck for, usually what will happen is, and this is, so many people do this, they'll buy the 6 key or the 15 key because they think, well, all I want to do is change between these 2 scenes, maybe start a recording, do something else, and so 6 buttons will be enough, or 12 buttons will be enough. But then when you get the Stream Deck, you realize, oh, there's all of these other things it can do. It's not just a streaming device. It is like the ultimate productivity tool, really. And so you see all of these other different use cases for it. And so then suddenly, your world expands, and so does your number of stream decks. Somebody posted on one of my videos, the optimum number of stream decks is however many you've got plus one, and I kind of concur with that. It does seem that is the way. That studio downstairs, by the way, that I showed you a moment ago, that one has there's, as well as the Stream Deck pedals, there is a single 32 key. But what I found was the bank of 3 there, which is basically 9 buttons to control that screen, was fine. The single button on the other side for the other screen, that was fine too. But the one in the middle was basically not enough to control the main production. So I'm going to add another 2 to that sort of central part there for controlling the main production scenes and things like that. So in that case, it's however many you've got plus 2 is the optimum. So that will be 7 pedals and just 1 regular Stream Deck. And really, the regular Stream Deck in that studio is more just kind of like a backup or a pre-production tool used to sort of get the thing going and whatever. But during the sessions, I didn't want to be pressing physical buttons with that. So hey, Aubrey, great to see you. Long time no see. Brandy Joe, great to see you again. I know we saw each other just a couple of hours ago in the other live session. Hey, Randall, great to see you here too. Used RødeCaster video this past weekend with Ecamm to record a presentation. The RødeCaster video scenes were zoomed in Ecamm, but I didn't have the camera effects zoom in Ecamm activated. Oh, that's interesting, because that would have been what my suggestion would have been. Let's see. So what we're talking about there is if you've got the RødeCaster video. It's funny actually, because this scene here is actually pulling in the RødeCaster video from downstairs, because I've got my cameras down there going into it. So maybe we can just have a little look in here to see what's going on and what we're talking about. I'll just drag my main window over here as well. So this is when you've got your scene selected here, and this is camera B, but it's basically RødeCaster video essentially coming in. I'll just change it to that. What we're saying is there is the camera effects window in Ecamm that does allow you to zoom in and out. So if this was set to digital zoom, then that would be the place where you could look to see, oh, okay, it's actually zoomed in down here. But if you're saying that it's not zoomed in there, are you monitoring the output from your RødeCaster video separately on a monitor as well? Because it could certainly be something that's zoomed in there as well. So if you've got your video going through the RødeCaster video and it is set up in where it's zoomed in or cropped there, then that could also be the case. The other thing to look at is that you could have one scene here where it's not zoomed in, and then you could have another scene where it is zoomed in, and so that could potentially be some confusion. And so you just said yes there. I'm not sure. Is that yes to it's zoomed in the RødeCaster video, or where is that? If RødeCaster video scenes were zoomed in Ecamm. Yeah, it would be a case of checking what they look like actually. Oh, so that you are monitoring in, I see. So you're monitoring in, sorry, there's going to be a delay here. It's always difficult having a conversation on YouTube because of the 10-second delay or whatever. So the point is you're monitoring the video coming in the RødeCaster video, but it's not just showing up as that in Ecamm is the point. But you say, yes, it's monitoring the RødeCaster video. Yeah, so if it is that it's coming out of the RødeCaster video and into Ecamm, and you're not sort of seeing the raw output from the RødeCaster video, it could be useful to do that. So check that, basically plug a monitor, an HDMI out of the RødeCaster video and plug it into a monitor and just see what it looks like in there, because it could be that it's something gone on in the RødeCaster video itself in terms of the cropping of the camera or something like that. So yeah, that's what I would try. What is your favorite coding program? I've got to say, I don't really do any coding these days. I have done in the past, but not for a long time. So I don't actually have a favorite coding program. What was the one I used to use? The one I used to use was a thing for Mac called Espresso, but it was a long time ago. That was just purely like a coding, a code writing environment, I guess. But yeah, it's a long time since I've done any actual coding. That I'm just trying to think of another one. There's another one that somebody was talking about recently for if you're creating code in like using Claude Code or whatever. Then there was one that he's importing this thing for. My mind's a blank. It's not something I do, so I'm not sure. Thank you so much, Randall. Yeah, give that a check, and then if not, then just drop me a message or something like that, and happy to help out. And thanks, glad you like the channel. And yeah, I've been on a bit of a hiatus. I've been on a hiatus for recorded videos. I've got to say for really, let's say 3 years, because I've only been doing my weekly live stream. Last year I posted about 6 or 8 pre-recorded videos. The year before was about the same, and then this year the last 3 months I've been busy building out this studio and the events and products that I'm running from that as well. So that's been my focus. But I'm getting back to the YouTube stuff. So yeah, expect to see a little bit more from me coming over the coming weeks, pre-recorded and live. I'll just come back to another question which was not dropped into the chat, but was actually part of the motivation for doing this, which was Gary in our academy and in some of our other programs was asking about lighting, and the problem was that the image that they were getting out of the camera when they were looking in the preview or whatever on screen, it was just looking quite dark. And the question was, what's the solution? How can we make it brighter? And so it's useful to look at this, which is the exposure triangle. So when it comes to cameras, there are 3 different things that are going to affect the exposure, how light your image is. And so this is basically the exposure is the amount of light that is reaching the camera sensor, essentially. So you've got a sensor in the back of the camera. So these 3 things are going to affect how much light is hitting that and how bright the image is going to be. The first one is the aperture. So if you think about, you've got a camera and then there's a lens on the front, and basically somewhere in that like lens assembly, there's essentially a little hole, and that is the aperture. It's how big of a hole there is letting the light through effectively. And so this is the aperture. Then there is the shutter speed. So this is essentially how long the shutter stays open to let the light through. And obviously with a video camera, this is happening. It's not just a single opening and shut. It's sort of effectively multiple of this. So, but how long is that shutter speed? How long does it stay open? What is the exposure time in seconds on the sensor? And then you've got something called the ISO, which is a bit of a peeve of mine because of the naming of it. You might think, with video we talk about ISO being isolated video. In the case of the light sensitivity of this is the same term that was used previously, or still is, for actual film that you develop, but now is used for the digital sensors as well. But it stands for the International Organization for Standardization. So it's kind of like they've named the standard after the organization that created the standard. It would have been better to call it light sensitivity factor, LSF, or something like that, who knows. But anyway, it's a bit of a stupid name in my case, my opinion. But in terms of what these actually represent, though, is the aperture is, as I say, the size of the opening within the lens. So this is measured in almost like reverse order. So if you see something with an aperture of 1.4, it is a larger size than something with an aperture of f2.2, and these are referred to as f-stops or aperture size. And so this is as I say, the size of the opening in the lens. Obviously, the larger it is, the more light is coming in. Now, there is a sort of side effect of the aperture, which is that it introduces this effect called bokeh. And this is also referred to as the sort of it affects, I should say, the depth of field. And so when you've got a deep depth of field, what it means is like you are in focus in the foreground, but also, things in the background are in focus as well. Whereas if you've got a shallow depth of field, you are in focus, but things that are in the background are perhaps blurry. Now, in the sense of, when you are having a studio setup like this, then it is actually kind of nice to have that slight blurriness in the background. So my Sony ZV-E10 has got a Sigma 30mm lens with f1.4 aperture, and that's why these things in the background are kind of looking slightly out of focus and slightly blurry. And it's a nice effect because it means it's literally taking the focus off those, but it's also, metaphorically taking the focus off the background and putting it more onto you. So in terms of, the effect that it's having on the light, having a smaller, shallower depth of field, a larger aperture rather, shallower depth of field is going to give you that bokeh effect, and is kind of favorable because it also increases the brightness and gives you that effect as well. The next one is the shutter speed, and this is, as I say, is the exposure time in seconds. So it's measured in fractions of a second, so 1/500th or a quarter of a second or whatever. Now, the thing that you would think here potentially is that you want it as fast as possible so that you're not getting sort of blurry motion or staggered or stuttering or whatever. I'm using all the wrong terms here, but hopefully they're describing what I mean. But in actual fact, if you have a too fast shutter speed, it kind of looks unnatural because when we are observing things, with our eyes in reality, they don't have as high a frame rate as that, and so there is a natural sort of blurring from one frame to another, and so you do potentially want some level of this sort of natural blur as it moves. Because if you think about the shutter being open and then my hand moves from here to here. In that time, there's going to be like a blurring effect across that path. And so we do want a certain level of blur, but we don't want it so much that it ends up with some real motion blur going on. So that is to just give you an example of what that would look like, where the really fast is going to be really crisp. There's no sort of movement in there, but when you've got something really slow, then the moving parts in the scene, or the moving things in the scene, are kind of blurred out basically. So then the sort of rule of thumb there is, if you're shooting at say 30 frames per second, then just take that number on the bottom and double it. So I'm shooting at 30 frames per second, so my shutter speed is set to that 1/60. If you were shooting at 25 or 24 frames per second, then the nearest you'd probably be able to set that to would be 1/50, for example. So that's just a rule of thumb there. And then you've got the light sensitivity, and this is basically how sensitive the sensor is to light. But the thing about this is there is a trade-off here. So if you have a really low sensitivity light, low light sensitivity sensor, like down to, let's say 100, you have it set to 100, then there is going to be like a really a crisper picture, so less noise, less graininess to it. Whereas as you go up to the higher ISOs, there is more light sensitivity, but that introduces more sort of noise, more graininess, if you like, to the image. So really there is, we want this to be really as low as possible to get the highest quality image. And so the other factor then that's affecting the brightness of your image is just simply the light that you've got around. But how these things all fit into the exposure triangle, and this is why it's called the exposure triangle, is because there is this trade-off between all of them, and it's a case of kind of trying to pinpoint exactly where you are in this triangle. Now, the aperture is, as I say, this is the size of the opening, and it affects the depth of field. Now, as I say, with us, what we want to do, as I say, us on camera in this sort of setting where you're creating your home studio, is the larger aperture is actually beneficial. So having a larger aperture to give that, nicer, softer look in the background is kind of what we want. So having that as low as possible, in terms of the lower number, the larger aperture, is going to be more sort of favorable. Then you've got the exposure time in seconds. Now, this is kind of dictated by the frame rate in a way. So you could say that one's more or less fixed. And as I say, if you've got sort of slower, there's going to be less blur, and faster is going to be, slower is going to be more blur. And faster is going to be less sort of blur in the image, but there is that sort of sweet spot that we want to aim for. So then we come to the light sensitivity. And so this really, if we've kind of said the ISO, aperture, make it as large as possible, the lowest number, and the shutter speed is kind of more or less fixed by what we've got as our frame rate, then it is the ISO that is going to be the one that we're more likely to be sort of tweaking to try to adjust that, apart from the actual lights in the studio. And as I say, have that as low as it will go, and still give you that bright image. Now my ISO on this camera I think is set to 200, but I've got these two lights here, and if I go to the right camera, that might help. And I should probably adjust this camera because I just realized this is looking a little bit dark as well. So let me just adjust that. Oh, I'll tell you what it is. It's because I've tweaked this a bit too much. Let's get this one fixed. Yeah, so I, at the moment, have got these two large lights. We've got the Nanlite Forza 60 is the light that's actually behind here. You can just see it sort of, maybe not behind there, but that's got this big softbox on it. But the light that's coming out of these is really quite bright. I mean, they're 60-watt lights. Actually, that one's set to sort of half power effectively, because at that point with the Nanlite Forza 60, if you set it to this sort of 50%, then the cooling fan doesn't come on. So this one is 30%, and this one is 50%, and this one is effectively, I think, 35%, and it's on a slightly smaller light. So what I've tried to do is basically get the ISO as low as possible. And have these lights giving the light to make the image that you see as bright as it needs to be. So that is just the exposure triangle and how those things all basically fit in when it comes to sort of figuring out how you are lighting things. And that is essentially, if you want to know like which direction to move them in to make them brighter. Smaller aperture number means larger aperture, making it brighter. If you've got a slower shutter speed, then it means it's basically opening and closing for a longer period of time, letting more light in. And then the ISO is that light sensitivity that is going to let in more light. So that was just a bit of an added description for Gary and anybody else who's interested in getting their lighting set up for their studio. So let's have a look. Have I played around with the RødeCaster Video S yet? I haven't. They are sending me one actually, so I think it's going to be beginning of December. I didn't get one before they were formally released. The RødeCaster Video S, though, just to give a bit of more information on that, the RødeCaster Video has let me see, seven function buttons for connecting up to 7 cameras. You can have 4 in over HDMI, and then you can connect via USB as well. Whereas the RødeCaster Video S has got, let me just confirm this, I think 4 buttons, 4 cameras or 5 buttons. Hang on 1 second. So that is just basically a smaller form factor. What I think is really interesting about it, though, is the price point, because the RødeCaster Video is 1,100, something like that, 1,200. Whereas the RødeCaster Video S is 499. The reason why that's so interesting is because the RødeCaster Video S is effectively got a RødeCaster Duo inside it, in that you can connect, two microphones and have all of the onboard processing and everything like that. Well, the RødeCaster Duo is also about $500 as well. So the fact that we've now got something that's got the same number of audio inputs, more or less, to the RødeCaster Video, technically it's to the RødeCaster Duo. Technically, that's got a little headset input as well, but that also has video capability, is pretty amazing. My ideal product here that I would love to see, just to show you what this looks like, my ideal product that I'd love to see would basically be a RødeCaster Video or RødeCaster Duo, complete with faders and smart pads, and yet also have the video capability built in. So imagine that you've got the RødeCaster here, the RødeCaster Video S, and as I say, it's got four video input switches here, and then this ABC is for four scenes. Let's take that full screen. Yeah, imagine if you had a RødeCaster Duo, and then basically there was just like an extra chin on the bottom that had the video switcher. That would be really amazing, because one thing I like about the RødeCaster Duo and the RødeCaster Pro 2 is I like the hardware faders. I like the hardware aspect to it, which is why I use that over, for example, in Ecamm Live, we can control audio levels. You can get other software-based solutions that give you a virtual mixer on your desktop. The thing that I love about the RødeCaster Pro 2 and the RødeCaster Duo is the faders that give us that really tactile control. And so the RødeCaster Video, although it can do audio as well, and has all the onboard processing, which is great, in my studio downstairs, I am using the regular RødeCaster Video down there, but what you'll see is I have also got a regular RødeCaster Duo plugged into it for my audio, because I still prefer it's somewhere just down there somewhere. Where is it? Let me see if I can zoom into it. It's somewhere just down there. And the thing that I like about it is the sort of tactile control. So there we've got the RødeCaster Video and the Duo right next to it. So I like the tactile control that you get from the faders. That said, I know that wasn't the question. The question was about the RødeCaster Video S. I think that, as I say, the price point, I mean, most people, if you're thinking of, recording a solo podcast, for example, or just a couple of people, and you want to have, maybe 2 or 3 cameras around the place, or maybe you're using it for Zoom presentations and so on. Just realized my camera's quite wonky. Let me try and fix that, get that lined up. Then this is a really, really great solution. And one thing I'll say is, although I'm using, Ecamm Live for my production right now, this is what I use for my camera switching. There's something to be said for a purely hardware switcher like this that just sits on the desk. You can have your scene set up, and this is the real breakthrough thing that I think that RødeCaster or Rode did with the RødeCaster Video when it came out, is compared to other hardware camera switchers, this is just on a completely different level. I mean, when I got into video production and creating content and so on, I did look at the A10 Mini. I looked at some other switching solutions. I've even been sent video switchers by other people, and I always say I'm not necessarily going to make videos about things. It's just videos about things that people send me. It just depends on if I think that, it's a good fit, or if I find it, easy to use or whatever. And I've got to say that every camera switcher I've tried has just been really clunky in terms of the software that's required to set it up. And this is what Rode really knocked out of the park with this, because the interface to be able to set up scenes similar to the ones I'm using right now, to be able to add in a camera, drag it and drop it, put it in the right place, add borders, add rounded corners, add in lower thirds and all this stuff. It's just really, really intuitive. So they've done an amazing job with the software to accompany it. And it's just kind of changed the game, I think, for hardware switchers. But to think you can get an all-in-one solution that you can just plug in your microphones, plug in a couple of cameras, and then you can create really high-quality productions with it. I think that the S is a really, really compelling product for the price. So it's definitely interesting. And as I say, I think I should get mine in a week or 2 weeks or something like that. So I'll definitely be doing a full review on it. I've got to do. I'm behind on all my videos, as I mentioned earlier, but one of them I want to do is an update on just the RødeCaster software in general for the RødeCaster Video. The ability to have NDI feeds coming in, and I think that that's something that this one doesn't do. I think that the RødeCaster Video S may or may not do NDI feeds. I don't think it does. I might be completely wrong about that. But the RødeCaster, regular RødeCaster Video with NDI, that is how I'm getting my video feeds into that RødeCaster. That is plugged into Ethernet, and then I've got my my Obsbot Tail 2s are plugged into Ethernet as well, and going into that RødeCaster. So yeah, that's my thought on that. I think RødeCaster Video S is, it's an all-in-one solution now that is amazing. So let's see where we're up to. Whoops, where's that gone there? That's funny. That's gone into the wrong position. Maybe it's because I'm in the wrong scene. That would help. What should I do if the Chromecast does not come up on my device? Which device is that you're talking about, and how is it plugged in? Would be the question there. Depending on that, I'm not too sure. Hey Kevin, great to see you. You've got the RødeCaster Video, but I still want to get the RødeCaster Video S to use in my home office and combine it with my RødeCaster Duo. Yeah, that would be. I mean, I'm all for gas gear acquisition syndrome, but if you've got another use case for it, then that's fine. And yeah, they do pair together really well. Obviously, I definitely do prefer the tactile controls on the RødeCaster Duo though. So if you've got that and just plugging it straight in, that makes total sense as well. Hey Daniel, great to see you. Okay, good night then. I'll see you next time. Let's see where we're up to. Yeah, the price point is amazing. I expected it to be. I mean, to be honest with you, I expected the RødeCaster video to be more. Although that some people have said it's compared to the Duo now, it's really separating itself. Sorry, compared to the RødeCaster Video S, the regular RødeCaster is separating itself. But I had one of the original RødeCaster videos for like an early review pre-release, and one of the questions was, what would I expect to pay for it? And honestly, I just thought it was that much more advanced than the A10 Mini, for example, that I was expecting it to be more expensive. But definitely, $500 for the RødeCaster Video S is just amazing. Yeah, we'll have to compare notes. Have to compare notes, Daniel. I'm excited to get my hand on it as well. That's a really good point, Brandy Joe. Does it help with the pull on CPU percentage? Absolutely. I mean, if you're using an external switcher, that's part of the thing is all of the processing is on board. It has its own CPU in the device itself. So it's doing all the video processing and everything like that. If it is then going into a computer, like in a Zoom call or whatever, then it's presenting, just one single feed to that. And it basically is not quite, but it's showing up, almost just as another web camera, but it's doing all the switching on the device effectively. Now, the thing about this I have to say, though, is if you're using Ecamm Live, for example, and you've got an external switcher like the RødeCaster Video or the A10 or any of these external switchers plugged into your computer and going into Ecamm, what you lose is the ability to really do camera switching in Ecamm. Now, that is not necessarily a problem if all you're doing is switching from like this scene to, let's say, this scene over here. You can see that I've got my main camera coming in and it's in both of these scenes. Imagine, though, that I also have like some secondary camera angle. So something like this, for example, wherever that happens to be pointing. Now, this is another camera. Well, if this was first coming through the RødeCaster Video, it would mean that when I switch to this scene over here, instead of being my camera, if it was coming via the RødeCaster Video, it would actually be this camera feeding through the RødeCaster Video, because the RødeCaster Video is only presenting one camera. So they're kind of duplicating the role, really. The RødeCaster Video can be used to create scenes, much like we can do in Ecamm, and in a really intuitive way as well. Whereas that's what Ecamm is. Ecamm is a software switcher. OBS is a software switcher. The RødeCaster Video, the A10 are both hardware switchers. So you kind of lose the functionality of the software once you start using one of these external switches. Now, the day that I'm hoping for and dreaming about is when we've got, I mean, this is like in an ideal world. What would I like? A RødeCaster Pro 2 with a RødeCaster Video interface, on the bottom of it for, bringing in multiple cameras and controlling them as well from there, and then still having the physical faders, but then being able to plug it into a computer and for the computer to be able to recognize every single individual camera that is connected to that device. That would be my ideal situation, because then basically the RødeCaster Video and all the things you plug into it, that becomes the audio and video hub, and then Ecamm becomes the software switcher. The reason why I still have, obviously, I'm a super fan of Ecamm Live is because of the ease of use. First of all, it does allow us to do things in a more simple way, although, as I say, Rode have changed the game with their scene creator and all of those kind of things, but also things like just the direct integration with Zoom, such that we can pull people out from Zoom using Ecamm for Zoom and have a scene set up where we've got other participants pulled into the production. And then as well, the live streaming control, the ability to bring up comments on screen, which we can't easily do with the RødeCaster Video yet. So all in all, that's why I'm still very much using Ecamm as my main sort of production. I did do this in the studio downstairs, where I had all my cameras coming into that, because I was basically using it as an NDI camera hub. And although I can do that in Ecamm as well, it meant that I can send the feed from the RødeCaster Video out over NDI, and it meant that could then be picked up by multiple computers. So that was the sort of reasoning for that, and to take some of the load off the machine and then just send that to the different computers that I had connected. There is a kind of way around it if you connect your RødeCaster Video to Ecamm or OBS. Let's say you've got one scene which you want to have, which is your main camera, but then you've got like another scene that is potentially for like secondary cameras or whatever. What you can do with the RødeCaster video is, because it's got 2 HDMI outs, you can have it that, you know, you program what's basically being fed out via HDMI or via NDI. And so you could say that, okay, well, just my main camera that's coming into the RødeCaster, let me just send that one out to this particular, you know, HDMI output, and take that into your computer separate to all of the other cameras as well. And that means that you could then use it sort of more like this hub, and your computer would basically see kind of 2 cameras. One of them is your main camera, and one of them is the RødeCaster video for all of the other switching. So that would potentially be a way of doing it. But yeah, generally, it is removing some of that load. You're absolutely right. Yeah, that it would technically function in Ecamm, but as I say, you lose some of that ability. If you want a solution that is giving you multi-camera connections into Ecamm, that doesn't have quite the same load, or is sort of easier on the connections, rather than using things like the CamLink 4Ks, which are capture cards to bring HDMI cameras into your computer, you could use something like the Blackmagic Decklink Quad 4K that allows you to connect 4 4K cameras and then connect that to your computer with just one single cable, and all of them would show up individually as individual cameras. But that's quite pricey, to be honest. I mean, if you look at the cost of that, I think it's around about $500 for the card, and then you need an enclosure. So you're looking at kind of like $700 just for the capture device to bring in 4 HDMI feeds. But anyway, it is what it is. And oh, that's great. So Randall is saying the RødeCaster Video S does do NDI as well. So that's definitely good to know. Let me see where we're up to here on this scene. I'll just have a check. Yeah, if it does, I mean, if it does NDI, that's great, because that is another great way to bring in the cameras on your onto your computer. Okay, so let me just go back to my scenes. I've just moved my screen around a little bit here. Now I can't see what I'm supposed to be looking at. There we go. So how many cameras does Ecamm Live see with the RødeCaster S? One or each camera connected? Yeah, so it's just the one. So that is the issue that I was just talking about there. Apart from if you do that little slight hack to bring the other one in. But yeah, great device for if you're just looking for a standalone thing. The other thing that's good about the you know, something like that is if you've got a space where other people are using it. I mean, I'm the only one that's using my Ecamm setup, and so I know all of the not the quirks of the software, but the quirks of the scenes that I've set up and how things work and where all the buttons are. There is something really compelling about having a device for, you know, which is just basically cameras 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can also set it up to do things like the video follows audio. So let's say you've got a scene set up, which is, you know, 2 people that are in a bit like this desk setup, and then you've got a camera over here on this guy and a camera over here on this guy. The RødeCaster can basically, when this person's speaking, it is shooting here, and when this person's speaking, you know, this one is the camera that it switches to. So it can do like auto switching and stuff like that. But to have something that's, you know, an all-in-one studio, you don't need to have, you know, banks of screens or controls or anything like that for people to figure out. You've just got the simple switching. Yeah, it is a really compelling device. Daniel, I have now started using how do you pronounce that? Zowie boxes to convert HDMI to NDI for my builds. Very interesting. Easily surpassed 10 cameras. That is interesting. I've never heard of those, so I'll go and find out what those are and try those myself, because that is interesting. To convert. Zowie Tech. Am I pronouncing that right? 4K HDMI NDI video encoder. Very cool. I've not heard of those. I will take a look at that. That is really interesting. That would solve a problem I've got actually. that I just had not got around to investigating how to solve it. But that could be really interesting. Cool. I've just dropped the link into the chat to that website. I'm assuming that's the right place. But yeah, thanks for that. Zoe Tech. Cool. That is very helpful. Thanks, Daniel. I'll definitely give that a look. Yeah, that studio that I've got downstairs at the moment, I've got a couple of mine's going blank. OBSBot Tail 2, and so they've got the PTZ control and zooming in and out. And the other thing that's interesting about Ecamm with those cameras in particular is Ecamm's got this great feature where if you've got a PTZ camera, not only can you control the pan, tilt, zoom. So in actual fact, this thing down here, I'm actually controlling the pan, tilt, and zoom within Ecamm. So I've got a where has it gone? Here. I've got a PTZ control for that camera, so we can move it around, we can change the presets and everything like that. But what you can also do is you can tie that to a specific scene in Ecamm. So it means that you could have one scene that's cropped into this place, another scene where the camera pans across and is cropped out maybe or whatever. And so by setting scenes up with specific presets on those pan, tilt, zoom cameras, then you're basically just doing your regular scene switching in Ecamm, but it is moving the camera to those positions. So it's really cool for that. But that's a studio downstairs, because of the plans that I've got for it to use it for example, there is part of that I'm going to use as a little podcast set. So over at this side, I'm going to sort of zoom in down to here. There'll be a camera at a lower level, and then that sort of screen, the acoustic insulation and the stuff on the side there, that'll basically be the backdrop to an armchair effectively for a podcast setup. There'll be another setup which is over on the other side. So as well as it being a stage that I can use sort of to be more mobile and walking around in, I've got these different shots that I want to set up for it as well. And for those, rather than wasting Tail 2 on, because they're so much more versatile for capturing movement and things like that, I'll just have a static camera. So that would actually likely be an HDMI camera. And that suggestion, though, Daniel, about those converters, that would be ideal for that, because it'd enable me to just have everything all NDI powered. I got a 12 port Ethernet switch that everything's going into. So I've got my RødeCaster video, the RødeCaster Duo, and then the computers down there as well plugged into that, and then those cameras as well. So taking things into over Ethernet would be cool to convert everything to NDI, and it looks like those obviously being NDI boxes, I can just plug those into the network. So very cool. Thank you for that, Daniel. If anybody's got any other questions or recommendations, I'm always open to those. I'm always a sucker for the gas as well for any recommendations for purchases. But if anybody's got any questions about anything Studio Tech, then feel free to drop them into the chat as well. Just coming back to that question then about the Chromebook, not plugging, it was not seeing, what was the question? I've lost the original question now. Where's it gone? What should I do if Chromecast does not come up on my device? Again, I'm still missing something here. So when you're trying to bring it into your Chromebook, into what is that though? Sorry, is it when you say it's not showing up? What's it not? How is it not showing up? Are you trying to bring it into a particular piece of software, or not sure about that one? Since we're in the business of causing gas, the gear acquisition syndrome, you may be interested in this, Daniel, as well. The best purchase I've made for my studio just recently is this. It's the Dell 24-inch touchscreen monitor. But what's really cool about it is I can now just have access to the Ecamm live chat, and it's all sort of touchscreen. So if I want to bring a comment up onto the screen, then I can just tap like that, and it's going to appear on the screen. Tap again to hide it. It's also really handy when I'm doing my sort of Zoom sessions, because it means things like asking people to come off mute or unmute or whatever, or the control that you want over Zoom that you don't just natively have with the buttons is is the thing there. So what it also is, as well as being a sort of flat screen here, it comes on a stand, and I can't really do this one-handed, but you can see the stand behind there. It allows it to, as you see, go flat screen, but it does just go up into a regular monitor as well. But then when needed, which is basically all the time in the case of my studio, then I can just sort of move it to this flat position. But as a way to control Ecamm and have all the buttons sort of at our control, it's really handy. But specifically, like as well, if you want to scroll notes and things like that, so for presentations or productions, to be able to have all of your notes in front of you and just sort of scroll through it, I found it's just really intuitive, because I don't want to be hunting around for the mouse when I'm in the midst of doing that. So I can just drop the link in though, because it is, as I say, it's something I saw. Nick Nimin has had one of these. So if you don't follow him and you're trying to grow on YouTube, he's a great person to follow, first of all. But he has had one of these for quite a while, and I kind of just always slept on it, I think. But it's really really cool. If we can find the link for it. Dell touchscreen monitor. Is this? Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it now that I've just talked about it. There's another one from Philips that I looked at, but yeah. That's a cool point, Daniel. Yes, using it to switch scenes with the beta of Ecamm, because the new version of Ecamm, as well as having the list view of scenes, has also got like little preview windows of scenes, so you'll be able to just touch on them like that. That's a very good point. I'll still actually probably use my Stream Deck, because I still do prefer the real tactile. I can change scenes without really looking, but yeah, having those all on there. One thing I've been playing around with the touchscreen, what do they call it? The virtual Stream Deck on the touchscreen is really cool for that. If there's buttons that are, maybe specific to productions that I'm not adding onto my regular Stream Deck, then it's great for that. I'm finding difficulty finding this thing now. It's the Dell. What is it now? Dell touchscreen. It's showing me the wrong one. That's why I'm just want to drop the link in. It is not this one. The Dell, I think it's the 2725HT. For some reason, it's not coming up when I search for it. Let's see. Looks very similar to that, but that's not the one. I will try and find it. It's Dell 24-inch touchscreen monitor, though. But yeah, and it's pretty affordable as well. It's like, I think $400, something like that. No, I'll get back to it. I'll let you search for that one yourself. Can I use... Question here from Rich is, can we use pencil on it like a stylus? Actually, the Apple Pencil is not working like a stylus. What I need to get is, there's like third-party styluses for actually, I guess for tablets or whatever, that tend to have a bigger tip, and they're more replicating the touch of a finger. I'm guessing those ones would work on it. The actual Apple Pencil itself, though, doesn't work. It's not like just that isn't working. That's obviously using some sort of slightly different technology. So no, you can't use that on it like a pencil. Yeah, that the idea of using those touchscreen for those bigger buttons is definitely going to be interesting. Any other questions that anybody's got, feel free to drop them in. We've been running for about an hour, so I'll probably wrap it up very soon. But normally what happens is I say any other questions, I end the live stream, and then sure enough, one comes in like literally just as I've ended the stream. So that's why, by the way, that's why I have the YouTube chat, there's always a bit of a delay on the YouTube live chat here versus what comes into Ecamm. So there's always like a slight delay here just between these two, apart from the built-in delay in YouTube that, you know, when someone posts a comment, it comes in here, you know, 10 seconds later or whatever, that I've asked the question because of the latency. But there's also a separate delay between those. So I've tried to keep view of the live stream in there, the live chat in there, because yeah, I usually catch things. That is the right one. It's the Dell. Thank you for Rich and you putting the thing in, Daniel. It is the Dell. I don't know why that's not coming up on Amazon though. 2424 HT. That is the one, I think. Ah, there it is. That might be why. Maybe it's saying it's is it out of stock or something like that. But that, you know what? That is still not the one either. HT, although that does say touchscreen. But why is 4-inch touchscreen? It's still not looking quite the same, to be honest. Multi-touch monitor. That image is not quite the same. It's not showing it me with the thing being down, or is it? See, that's not the correct image. I'll find it somewhere else. That is the right thing that you're given, but for some reason there's something going on with Amazon where it's not showing me the right image. So that's what it basically looks like. This is in Thailand, but that's what it looks like from the side. And there's this arm. But when I'm looking in Amazon, there, it's giving me something that's looking slightly different. That's the fixed version of it. That might be the one there. Although that is technically the thing in Amazon. But yeah, that is the right one though. It's the P2424 HT. I don't know why that's not coming up for me in Amazon. Oh, 2418. 2418. 24. Welcome to welcome to browse Amazon with me. It's weird. For me, it's not coming up on Amazon. That's why. So I'll leave you to to find it. Yeah, it is actually the 2424 HT. That is the correct one. It's the 2424 HT, HT rather. That is the the one. God. So yeah, Dell 2424 HT is the actual one. But it's yeah, for some reason the Amazon link's not working, so it might be just not available in the US. It was because I shared the link with it previously, so I know it used to be, but there you go. And yes, with Shopee, it's always Black Friday. So in Thailand we have the Shopee and there's Lazada. So those are two of the biggest sort of e-commerce platforms over here. There isn't actually Amazon Thailand, but they do free shipping from the US to Thailand. I think they've probably had some sort of regulatory issue with Thailand not wanting to let them set up here in competition with some others. But the thing that they do on Lazada and Shopee is like on the, let's say it's the 11th month, then 11/11 is going to be like a sale. They always have an end of month sale as well. And so like when I bought it, I basically just waited for one of those periods, and instead of being whatever it was, 10,000 Thai baht, it was 8,000 Thai baht. So yeah, they're very good at doing these deals here. It feels like we have a Black Friday every month, at least once a month. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, Shopee is the same as well. So yeah, anyway, that is what it is. And yeah, it was a great investment. And I originally bought it for the studio downstairs because obviously that was the idea of that is it's a standing studio. I didn't want to have a mouse and keyboard and be controlling things like that. So obviously the main thing was going to be for using the pedals, but then to be able to interact with chat and whatever just with the touch screen and the scroll was the reason for that. But yeah, I was basically sold immediately, and so it's moved up here, and I've got another one coming for the studio downstairs. Yeah, big surprise. It's kind of easy to interact with devices by touchscreen. Who knew? Cool. Well, if there's no other questions, we will wrap it up there. And I'll be back next week with another live stream. In case you missed it, there is a Black Friday deal coming up with Ecamm starting very soon. So keep your eyes out. I think technically it's not starting till tomorrow. So maybe it's today my time, tomorrow for people in the US. But keep your eyes out if you're wanting to try Ecamm. Their sale coming over this next week is not to be missed. I really couldn't do everything that I do without Ecamm. That event that I ran from the studio downstairs, multiple instances of Ecamm powering it all, and it's changed the game for me in terms of how I create video, how I show up online, and couldn't do all of my courses without it. So check out the link in the description if you are not familiar with Ecamm Live. I know most of the people that I'm seeing in the chat are, but highly recommended. Apart from that, I will see you all next time. I don't even know that in my studio setup up here, I don't even know if this button's going to work, but usually this one ends the live stream. So let's just see. Bingo, it did. It all carried over from my other computer to my new computer up here. Take care. Check out some of these videos on the over on the right, and I'll see you all next time.